With recent results from a European Modern tournament, it brings into question a lot of people's concerns of, did the ban and restricted announcement work? Did the Fury ban work to fix the Modern format and Cascade Beans itself? And did the Grief Scam metagame fix itself? Well, let's have that discussion here with those results. I want to talk about where the Grief decks have also evolved, and then ultimately, finally try and decide if the BNR worked with as much evidence as possible. So let's start things off with the, I guess, Reddit post that sparked it all. So I saw this earlier today talking about how Scam wins Barcelona despite Fury ban. So this is talking about a kind of the LMS in Barcelona, part of the Legacy European Tour, or just kind of a tournament series in Legacy, where an individual won LMS Barcelona. On Twitter, you see here. So I don't want to mispronounce their name. I'm going to call them M. Garcia. So congrats to M. Garcia for winning with Rakdos Scam. And don't be triggered by it. Let's delve right into it with this deck list. There's a lot of things that are similar. So obviously Fury is gone, but we see a certain consistency factor. There actually is a lot of tech here, and we have to understand full picture what's going on in terms of the matchups they faced, how their deck list is actually designed, and how that actually allowed them to take that W ultimately in this tournament. Again, big congratulations to this win. I'm actually, I may spoil this video right now, but big congrats. I'm actually happy that this deck got to win. Now, let's talk about it really simply from here. This person sums it up perfectly. What's the problem? There's only one single digit Rakdos deck in the field. She brought a deck that was good against Cascade decks regardless of Fury. Cascade decks were about 19% of the field. She lucked into some good matchups for about 8 or 9 rounds, which is fair. There's a amount of luck into the matchups that you have. This isn't an indictment of the choice of banning. If Cascade is going to continue being such a large portion of the meta, then Rakdos will be a good choice. And I think that's relatively fair, but I will say that the Cascade decks have had a good matchup against Scam relatively, because even if you get scammed out, you can top deck and kind of make your land drops and then ultimately win with those top decks. But it's not the Rhinos decks that we're talking about here. It's actually the Living End decks. This one right here, where about 4.3% of the winners metagame right now. You'll see that the list itself, if we kind of back up, is relatively well teched against Living End, especially in the main board. We have a main board Blood Moon. We have the Molten Collapses, obviously the 4 Douthie Voidwalkers, and honestly just a lot of really valuable stuff that allows this deck to get that W. In a lot of ways, the Scam matchup is great because those decks, you can just scam out some of their land choices if they keep like one landers. There's a lot of main board tech options. The deck is actually relatively well positioned, especially out of the sideboard. The 2 Chalices, the 3 Leyline of the Voids, the 2 Blood Moons, just everything coming out of here is actually really well positioned. If they played so much Living End, which they did, over 3, 4, I think over 5 matches of Living End they played in their 8 to 9 rounds of Modern. So this was actually really well teched, and that's what I want to do to quell all of your fears. It's not that Rakdos Scam is coming back. M. Garcia actually made a really fantastic meta call, a lot of pilot skill, a lot of matchup knowledge, and they use that to win this Modern tournament. So I don't think that we need to necessarily be afraid that Rakdos Scam is coming back, although I do want to kind of talk about some of those fears. This is just one tournament. I want to talk about how the deck has actually evolved when it comes to the metagame moving forward, because the Grief package is actually still just as powerful. Let's move forward in that. First, these 3 decks that I want to highlight all come from the challenges that have happened over this weekend. Now, it's going to be 2 or 1 Dimir list, 1 kind of Sultai list, and then an Orzhov list. So Dimir Scam, these are all top 8s, by the way, taking advantage of Una's Blackguard to deal combat damage and then make up for the card disadvantage that you get from the discard package in here by drawing some cards alongside Stalactite Stalker, which is kind of a removal spell, getting stronger and stronger. The menace ability is actually really strong, and this is a relatively recent addition to the deck coming out of the Lost Caverns of Ixalan. And then obviously the Undying Malice package is still there, so there's a lot of reanimation, a lot of recursion for some of these creatures that are going to be able to continue to have ETBs kind of walk through removal, have evasion just in terms of menace and flying. So you can tell that this rogue style evasion centric list obviously has a lot of merit in the modern format. If your removal is still going to be hard pressed to stick onto creatures, that's going to have a lot of value. Now, the next deck that I want to kind of showcase here is this Sultai Scam list, where it's kind of soft Sultai. There's a lot of value engines in here. Urza Saga, you see the one Overgrown Tomb, and it's really Sultai for the Terra Sunder in the sideboard. So largely it's Dimir, kind of splash green for exile target artifact or enchantment, which is going to be great against the One Ring, against opposing Urza Sagas. So just a lot of value there, but really you're going to see 3 copies of the One Ring in there. And then finally, I want to talk about Orzhov Scam. This is the list that I think if Scam was to really survive in this metagame, I think this is it. This would be the biggest argument for how the BNR did not work. Again, big congrats to M. Garcia. That is not, I think, a good indictment of where Scam is in the metagame. That was great pilot skill, and honestly a great, as again, just matchup call, meta call of a deck list in that tournament. But here we see a variety of things happen. Now, one of the biggest predictions that a lot of people made was that Solitude would be the Fury replacement. Now, Fury deals a lot of damage divided up amongst multiple creatures, where Solitude is only going to be able to deal damage to 1. The lifelink is going to matter, and then obviously the life that your opponent gains is also going to matter depending on the matchup. So a lot of things are happening here. The flash is very valuable, but alongside the Solitude, exiling a creature being very valuable as well, they also run a soft Stoneforge package, which you saw. So there's kind of like multiple things going on here. It kind of is like an Orzhov kind of mono white list type of thing with Stoneforge Mystic. But the big way that they're able to abuse things like this is they don't run the full package of like 6 to 8 Undying Malices. They're using the Ephemerates, and Ephemerate has so much value here because not only can it evade removal, but can also just reuse creatures with valuable ETBs. Grief, again, without it dying, you can reuse that. You can reuse the Stoneforge Mystic, you can reuse the Solitude, and then in many ways just abuse cards like Orcish Bowmasters, a recurring card that we've seen in all 3 lists. The power of Orcish Bowmasters is really what's going to be keeping Scam list moving forward. It's going to be one of the many reasons why this deck is able to survive and persevere throughout the metagame, along with some of these other colors. Now, I think Ephemerate is going to be the whole reason that this deck is going to work moving forward, or that Grief has its staying power. Obviously, Dimir Scam is still around. You'll see it in Legacy as well. Dimir Scam is actually a relatively good deck. You're seeing it in the top 10% of the winners metagame decks being played in general in Legacy. So a lot of people are taking templates from them. But again, I think this Orzhov list using Ephemerate is so powerful, because even if we look back, ephemerating a Grief, Solitude, Orcish Bowmasters, heck, you even have the Manatide just out of here, just protecting those things, and Ephemerate just saving Shieldreds, and you're getting 2 ETBs with a lot of those things. So you're going to be able to grief your opponent multiple times, Solitude multiple times, Orcish Bowmasters multiple times, which is huge. Getting that ETB again, growing your Orc army, that is big game. And so I think that is where our discussion has to go to. Did it work? Did the banned and restricted announcement, all this in mind, with the winner from LMS Garcia and these 3 decks showing up in the modern challenges? Well, ultimately, we have to look at the modern metagame. I think it did work. I think in a lot of ways, it's okay to play Scam. I think that there are going to be a lot of matchups and meta calls where Scam is going to be very good. But with Fury gone, we're going to see decks like Yawgmoth take real big advantage of what's going on here. We're going to see the Hardened Scales decks still be around and taking advantage of everything going on, because if Scam is still going to keep trying, Hardened Scales is still going to win. Amulet Titan still had a relatively good matchup against Scam because it can top deck its way through a win. Hence the green Tron list. Burn is always good. Hammer Time seeing a comeback thanks to Fury being gone. Again, the modern metagame is healing with Fury gone. And even though Scam is here, they may take cards out of your hand, but the Cascade decks are still going to be able to relatively find their way to a W, even not if it's not living in. The Crashing Footfalls decks still has a positive win rate against the Scam matchup, to my knowledge anyway. So again, the Orcish Bowmasters is going to be a consistent factor in the modern metagame for Scam. It's going to be a big reason why the engine is powerful. This card is just absurdly good, getting rid of X1s and just honestly potentially X2s depending on how many cards your opponent is drawing. It's just a great card all in all, and in my mind actually a lot worse than the One Ring. But you're also going to see Delphi Voidwalker, where in a lot of these longer games you unfortunately can't win because of Douthie Voidwalker. All the spells that you take, Douthie Voidwalker might take your counter spells, your removal, your other cards that you've removed, they might actually take your combo pieces and use them against you. So ultimately, Scam is going to be around, but I think the ban worked. And honestly, if it's going to be different versions of aggro seeing play all over the format and Yawgmoth and combo being everywhere, I think ultimately the ban worked. And I think Modern is saved in a big way. If we're going to see all these older decks in Modern come back, some of the regular Modern stalwarts that we've seen other Modern Horizons decks have its staying power, then that's a very valuable thing to have. And I'm really excited and just honestly happy to be playing Modern right now. But I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. Do you think the banned and restricted announcement worked? Do you feel some excitement over Scam winning in that tournament? Again, third time shout out to M Garcia. Really great to see just highly skilled pilots and great meta calls get their success. What do you think about the results and everything in this video? Down below, I want to hear your thoughts. Let's talk Scam. Let's talk Modern.